The newcomer said, "You have undoubtedly been through a most harrowing experience. If you have any untoward symptoms, possibly I could be of assistance." Joe couldn't figure out how he stood. For one thing, there should have been some kind of police guard. The other said, "Perhaps a bit of stimulant." Joe said flatly, "I want a lawyer." The newcomer frowned at him. "A lawyer? I'm not saying nothing. Not until I get a mouthpiece." The newcomer started off on another tack. "My name is Lawrence Reston Farrell. If I am not mistaken, you are Joseph Salviati Brentera." Salviati happened to be Joe's mother's maiden name, but it was unlikely this character could have known that. Joe had been born in Naples and his mother had died in childbirth. His father hadn't brought him to the States until the age of 5, and by that time he had a stepmother. "I want a mouthpiece," Joe said flatly, "or let me go to here." Lawrence Reston Farrell said, "You are not being constrained. There are clothes for you in the closet there." Joe gingerly tried swinging his feet to the floor and sitting up, while the other stood watching him. Strangely, he came to his feet, with the exception of a faint nausea which brought back memories of that extreme condition he'd suffered during. During what? He hadn't the vaguest idea of what had happened. He was dressed in a hospital-type nightgown. He looked down at it and snorted and made his way over to the closet. It opened on his approach, the door sliding back into the wall in much the same manner as the room's door had opened for Reston Farrell. Joe Brentera scowled and said, "These ain't my clothes." "No, I am afraid not." "You think I'd be seen dead wearing this stuff? What is this, some religious crackpot hospital?" Reston Farrell said, "I am afraid, Mr. Salviati Brentera, that these are the only garments available. I suggest you look out the window there." Joe gave him a long, chill look and then stepped to the window. He couldn't figure the other, unless he was a fruitcake. Maybe he was into some kind of pressure cooker and this was one of the fruitcakes. He looked out, however, not on the lawns and walks of a sanitarium but upon a wide boulevard of what was obviously a populous city. And for a moment again, Joe Brentera felt the depths of nausea. This was not his world. He stared for a long, long moment. The cars didn't even have wheels, he noted dully. He turned slowly and faced the older man. Reston Farrell said compassionately, "Try this, it's excellent cognac." Joe Brentera stared at him, said finally, flatly, "What's it all about?" The other put down the unaccepted glass. "We were afraid first realization would be a shock to you," he said. "My colleague is in the adjoining room. We will be glad to explain to you if you will join us there." "I want to get out of here," Joe said. "Where would you go?" The fear of police, of Al Rossi's vengeance, of the measures that might be taken by Big Louis on his failure were now far away. Reston Farrell had approached the door by which he had entered and it reopened for him. He went through it without looking back. There was nothing else to do. Joe dressed, then followed him. Casters. In the adjoining room was a circular table that would have accommodated a dozen persons. 2 were seated there now, papers, books and soiled coffee cups before them. There had evidently